Part 3. The battle begins. The celestial plains outside the citadel were vast, stretching endlessly beneath a sky that shimmered with the light of countless stars. On these plains, the armies of light assembled, their banners gleaming with golden light, their armor shining like the sun itself. They were the last line of defense, the final barrier against the encroaching darkness that threatened to consume everything they held dear. Seraphiel stood at the head of the army, his heart filled with both sorrow and resolve. This was the battle he had feared, the battle that would decide the fate of heaven, and perhaps the entire cosmos. His hand tightened around the hilt of the Sword of Radiance, its blade shimmering with divine energy. "We stand as one," Seraphiel said, his voice carrying across the ranks of celestial soldiers. "We are the light, we are the hope, and we will never let the darkness take what we have built." The soldiers raised their weapons in unison, their faces fierce with determination. Beside Seraphiel, Gabriel sounded the horn of light, its blast echoing across the heavens. The armies of light began to march toward the battlefield, their wings beating in perfect harmony, their resolve unshakable. But in the distance, something dark stirred. The sky above the plains of heaven grew dim, as if the very heavens themselves were being swallowed by an unnatural shadow. A chilling silence fell over the land, broken only by the faint sound of whispers carried on the wind. From the depths of the darkness, Asmodeus emerged. His wings were no longer the radiant feathers they once had been, but jagged, blackened shadows that rippled like the night itself. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and his voice rang out, cold and full of venom. "Light," he called, his voice echoing across the battlefield. "You think you can stop me? You think you can preserve this false peace? It is too late. The darkness has already won. And soon, all that you cherish will be reduced to nothing." At his side stood his army of fallen angels, once noble beings of light, now twisted by hate and betrayal. Their forms flickered like shadows, their eyes filled with the burning desire for vengeance. The two armies faced one another across the celestial plains, the forces of light standing firm against the encroaching darkness. Seraphiel's heart thundered in his chest as he gazed upon the familiar, yet utterly changed, figure of Asmodeus. Once a brother, now a bitter enemy. This would be the fight of their lives. Part 4. The Clash of Titans. The battle began with a roar that shook the very heavens. The armies of light and darkness collided in a fierce clash, the sound of metal against metal ringing out across the plains. The soldiers of light fought with the grace and precision of the divine, their swords glowing with heavenly energy as they struck down the fallen angels who dared to cross their path. Each blow they landed seemed to push back the shadows, but for every angel that fell, two more rose from the darkness. Seraphiel fought at the front, his sword cutting through the air with divine fury. Every strike was aimed to protect the light, to defend the sanctity of heaven itself. He moved with the precision and skill of a master, his every action calculated, his every decision made with the weight of his responsibility in mind. But even he could feel the pressure mounting as the tide of darkness seemed endless. In the midst of the battle, he caught sight of Asmodeus, standing at the heart of the enemy forces, his eyes burning with a hatred that seemed to scorch the very air around him. Asmodeus raised his own blade, a dark weapon forged in the heart of the void, and with a single slash, he cleaved through a dozen celestial soldiers. His strength was unmatched, and his power was growing with every moment. "Seraphiel," Asmodeus called, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "You will never stop me. This war is inevitable, and the light will fall, just as it always does." Seraphiel's heart burned with fury as he pushed his way through the chaos, his sword flashing as he cut through the fallen angels in his path. He would not let Asmodeus win. He could not. And so, they met in the center of the battlefield, the two archangels, one light, one darkness, locked in a deadly duel. Their blades clashed, sending sparks flying as the ground beneath them trembled. Asmodeus's twisted form moved with unnatural speed, his attacks fueled by hatred and vengeance. Seraphiel, driven by the purity of his mission, countered each blow with the strength of 1,000 suns. Part 5. The Fate of Heaven. The struggle between Seraphiel and Asmodeus was a dance of light and shadow, each strike and counterstrike resonating with the power of their ancient bond. For all the pain they had caused one another, for all the rage that now boiled between them, they were still connected, two halves of the same eternal story. As they fought, the fabric of heaven itself began to unravel. The skies above them darkened further, the stars dimming as if the very life force of creation was being drained away. The celestial realms quivered as if they too were afraid of the coming destruction. Seraphil felt the weight of the battle bearing down on him. His wings began to ache with exhaustion, his sword heavy in his hand. He knew that to defeat Asmodeus, he would need more than strength or skill. He would need the light to guide him, the power of the eternal flame to reignite the balance. But Asmodeus was relentless. He struck with the fury of ages, his dark blade seeking to end Seraphil's life, to extinguish the last flicker of light. For a moment, it seemed that the darkness would win, that heaven would fall under the crushing weight of the void. But in the final moment, Seraphil gathered his strength, his wings flaring out behind him like a phoenix in flight. With a cry that rang out across the battlefield, he raised his sword high, the sword of radiance glowing brighter than the sun itself. Asmodeus swung his blade, but Seraphil moved with the speed of the divine, parrying the blow and landing a strike that sent shockwaves through the air. The two forces collided, and in that moment, the heavens held their breath. In the flash of light that followed, everything changed. We've gotten to the end. This is how lightness overcome darkness by securing heaven. If you know you like this video, kindly like, subscribe and comment. God bless you.